So we'd like to welcome you to the Love of Dunbar Collective Black History Program. Thank you for joining us as we remember the life and legacy of Paul Laurence Dunbar. I'm Oni Lasana, and I am going to, well, everyone's going to do their thing, but let me give you a little history on Dunbar. Paul Laurence Dunbar died in Dayton, Ohio on this exact day, February 9th, 118 years ago in 1906. In his short lifespan of 33 years, he served humanity as a gifted poet and author. Dunbar left behind an amazing body of creative imaginations, social insights, musical librettos, and powerful written and spoken words. The Love of Dunbar Collective is so happy to have you arriving in the Zoom Village Square to spend your precious time with us as you experience this literary feast. You will hear some of our favorite Dunbar poems, and we invite you to share with us your favorite Dunbar poem. In the words of iconic poet Professor Nikki Giovanni, Dunbar is community. In the Love of Dunbar Collective, he is the father of the spoken word movement in America and our very own American Shakespeare. As a literary humanitarian, he spoke for people who had no voice, and he dispelled the myth that Africans in America were unable to be educated. So now we will open with a brief bio on Paul Laurence Dunbar from our YouTube channel. It's produced by Betty Haskins of Baltimore, Maryland, who you will also hear from soon. Let's enjoy watching this video on Paul Laurence Dunbar together.
The 1870s, a momentous decade. Congress creates the United States Department of Justice, ratifies the 15th Amendment, guaranteeing voting power for African American men, passes the Ku Klux Klan Act, authorizing the president to declare martial law to suppress the horrific organization. Montgomery Ward issues its first mail order catalog, and Levi Strauss patents the blue jeans. The first Kentucky Derby is run, and the winner, a Black man, Oliver Lewis. June 27th, 1872. Paul Laurence Dunbar, a prolific writer of poetry, novels, and plays, is born in Dayton, Ohio, to Joshua and Matilda Dunbar. Although the marital discord between Joshua and Matilda caused Paul to live a transient life, moving from neighborhood to neighborhood and attending many different schools, it did not stop the child prodigy who wrote his first poem at the age of 6 and performed his first recital at the age of 8. Matilda and Joshua were born into slavery, and in their support of their son's love of words, they often told him tales of the plantation life they had endured. These stories found their way into many of Dunbar's poetry and prose. In a 1902 newspaper article, Dunbar wrote, "My mother, who had no education except what she picked up herself, and who was generally conceded to be a very unusual woman, taught me to read when I was 4 years old. Both my father and mother were fond of books and used to read to us as we sat around the fire at night." Paul and Matilda's relationship was a strong one. His mother ensured that he received a stellar education by attending night school herself to improve her own literacy skills so that she could help her son. And Paul rewarded her efforts by receiving a high school diploma, a feat only accomplished by less than 3% of Americans in 1891. At his graduation ceremony from Central High School in Dayton, the entire graduating class performed Farewell Song, written by Paul, with music by F.C. Mayer. Although Matilda wanted her son to be a minister, and he himself aspired to be an attorney, fate had a different path for him, though it was not an auspicious beginning. After graduation, Paul secured a position as an elevator operator. He was often seen perched on his stool in the elevator, surrounded by books and papers. Throughout his tenure in this job, Dunbar gave several free recitals in and around Dayton. While Paul struggled to succeed in Dayton, often receiving negative reactions to his poems, a number of local citizens recognized his genius and offered him assistance and support. He was hired as a page in the Dayton Common Pleas Court, the first time a colored man had ever been appointed to a position in the courthouse other than as a janitor. It was in this position that Paul decided that instead of pursuing law, he would dedicate his life to writing in order to interpret my own people through song and story, and to prove to the many that after all, we are more human than African. And so he continued to search for other employment representative of his education and literary accomplishments. He accepted a temporary position as editor of the Indianapolis World, and while there, happened upon a poem in the Boston Monthly Review, written by a poet, New Orleans native Alice Ruth Moore. He wrote Miss Moore to comment on her poem and the ideas she conveyed in it. Now, Dunbar was no stranger to romance and love, as demonstrated by the swooning ladies at his performances. However, his love for Alice, who became his wife, is legendary. Dunbar returned to Dayton and began to write tirelessly. His works appeared in the leading journals and magazines of the day, including Harper's Weekly, the Saturday Evening Post, and Current Literature. Commentators, including William Dean Howells, often noted that Dunbar appeared to be of pure African descent, at a time when many leading members of the African American community were obviously of mixed race, often with considerable European ancestry. This distinction, along with the admiration of his poetry and short stories, led to an invitation to do a literary tour in Europe. Prior to leaving, Paul asked Alice Moore to marry him. She accepted. In February 1897, Dunbar set sail upon the Umbria for Liverpool, England. He received a hearty welcome, as evidenced by one of his letters to Alice Moore, now his fiancée. The people are very nice to me. It appears that I am the most interviewed man in London, the best papers having sent reporters to me. Later that year, the Library of Congress received a letter from lawyer, orator, and library patron Robert G. Ingersoll, asking if the library had a position for Dunbar. Read, to be in the company of books. Could you give this young fellow a place in the library? Dunbar secured a position as an attendant in the Library of Congress. He worked in the library's closed stacks, dealing with the dust and the must of books in a hot, closed space was unpleasant work for the young man and strained his health. Oh, but sometimes adversity inspires great art, and Dunbar's experiences working in a difficult library environment, in which he felt like he was trapped in a cage, are the basis for one of his best-known poems, Sympathy. Dunbar's most notable accomplishment during his time working in the library stacks had nothing to do with his actual job duties. He was the first poet to give a poetry reading at the Library of Congress. The reading took place in 1897 in the library's reading room. His other accomplishment while working at the library? His marriage to Alice Moore. She urged him to leave the job at the Library of Congress in order to focus on more important things. She encouraged him to pursue his writing. In addition, she encouraged him to promote his poetry through public readings. While in Washington, D.C., Dunbar also attended Howard University. 2 short years after leaving the Library of Congress, Dunbar contracted a fatal disease, tuberculosis. Upon the advice of his doctors, the Dunbars, Paul, Alice, and his mother Matilda, left Washington, D.C. They moved to Colorado, where Paul continued to write. Just as with his parents, Dunbar's marriage was rocky, and in 1902, he and Alice separated, but never divorced. They had no children. Despite suffering with a failed marriage and a fatal disease, Dunbar would continue to create prolifically. He wrote his final novel, The Sport of the Gods, a 300-page novel in 30 days. The film version, with its integrated cast, would later be released and marked a breakthrough in desegregation in the entertainment industry. Billboard advertised the opening on its primary page, making it the first time this level of recognition had ever been paid to a race film. The Sport of the Gods commemorative stamp was released in 2008. Paul Laurence Dunbar was very active in the area of civil rights and the upliftment of African Americans. The great abolitionist Frederick Douglass called him the most promising young colored man in America. Dunbar wrote widely published essays critical of Jim Crow laws, lynching, and what was commonly called the Negro problem. He worked with other leading civil rights notables, including W.E.B. Du Bois, to create the American Negro Academy, the first organization in the United States to support African American academic scholarship in the liberal arts. On February 9th, 1906, Paul Laurence Dunbar passed away in Dayton at the home he had purchased for his mother. The home has now been designated as a national treasure and museum. The newspapers at the time reported that the sweetest singer of his race is dead, having succumbed to consumption. It is said that he died in Matilda's arms while reciting the 23rd Psalm. He was only 33 years old. During his short 13-year career, Dunbar created more than 400 poems, a dozen books of poetry, 4 books of short stories, 4 novels, a play, and lyrics for a musical. His illustrious legacy leaves a national monument, university buildings, streets, parks, hospitals, libraries, and over 140 schools named in his honor. The Dunbar Apartments, as well as the Dunbar National Bank, were built by John D. Rockefeller Jr. to provide housing and banking for African Americans. Although the bank closed in 2008, the apartments have been converted to upscale condominiums currently in use. Many greats, including composer William Grant Still, poet and author Maya Angelou, author Toni Morrison, poet and activist Nikki Giovanni, poet and writer Langston Hughes, and author Zora Neale Hurston have been immensely inspired by his works. Despite overt discrimination, despite financial instability, despite health issues, Paul Laurence Dunbar kept plugging away. Dunbar was truly a brilliant Black man who excelled in his brief life, leaving a wealth of literature that continues to be relevant to this day. In a 1905 essay, Dunbar wrote, "People are taking it for granted that the Negro ought not work with his head, and it is so easy for these people among whom we are living to believe this. It flatters and satisfies their self-complacency." Paul Laurence Dunbar was born in Dayton, Ohio on June 27, 1872, and transitioned 33 years later on February 9, 1906. Paul Laurence Dunbar, truly a man of distinction, a literary trailblazer.
Oh, wasn't that a wonderful biography on Paul Dunbar? We thank you, Betty, for telling his story with such historical insight and passion. Just visit our YouTube channel, Love of Dunbar, to view the documentary again. Again, thanks, Betty. Oh, now on with our program. Thank you again for everyone who's here and for your patience in all our little technical issues. We're going to move on and we're going to welcome Mama Nzinga. Mama Nzinga will be presenting Dunbar's tribute to his African heritage. It's called Ode to Ethiopia. Mama Nzinga?
Yes, Jambo, just like the sunrise, Paul Laurence Dunbar believed that people of African descent could rise above slavery. So he wrote, Ode to Ethiopia. O mother race, to thee I bring this pledge of faith unwavering, this tribute to thy glory. I know the pangs which didst thou feel when slavery crushed thee with its heel. With the dear blood all gory. Sad days were those, Ah, sad indeed. But through the land, the fruitful seed of better times was growing. The plant of freedom upward sprung and sped its leaves so fresh and young. Its blessings, its blossoms now are blowing on every hand in this fair land. Proud Ethiopia's swarthy children stand beside their fairer neighbor. The forests flee before the stroke. They sit in homes and labor. They tread the fields where honor calls. Their voices sound through Senate halls and majesty and power. To right, they cling, the hymns they sing. Up the skies, beauty rings and bolder grow each hour. Be proud, my race, my mind and soul. Thy name is writ on glory scroll in characters of fire. High mid the clouds of flame, bright sky, thy banners blazoned, fold now fly, and thou shalt lift their very high. Thou hast the right to these noble pride, whose spotless robes were purified by blood severe, blood severe baptism. Upon thy brow one's laid, and labor's painful sweat beads made, a consecrating chrism. No other race, or white or black, when bound as though went work to the rack, so seldom stop to growings. No other race, when free again, forgot the past and proved the men so noble in forgiving. Go onward up, our souls and eyes shall follow thy continuous rise. Our ears shall list thy story from bards who from thy roots shall spring and proudly tune their lyres to sing of Ethiopia's glory.
My name is Ronald Carter. We Wear the Mask is Paul Laurence Dunbar's reaction to being a Black in the late 19th century of the United States following the Civil War. During this period for Black folks, life seemed okay, but in reality, it was not. Dunbar showed us that suffering and pain of oppression Black people were experiencing during this period was hidden. On the inside, hurting a marginalized group of people such as Africans in America. In order for them to survive in an unsympathetic and prejudiced society, they displayed a false presentation of being okay, hence hiding their true feelings. We wear the mask. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh great Christ, our cries, to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, oh the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. we wear the mask.
Hi, my name is Viveka Deans. One of my favorite aspects of Paul Laurence Dunbar's writings is timeless words of encouragement he left for his readers and listeners to receive. We're never too old to need them, and as evidenced by Paul Laurence Dunbar's writings, you're never too young to give them. Be inspired by Paul Laurence Dunbar's Keep a Plug-in Away. I have an humble little motto that is homely, though it's true. Keep a plug-in away. It's a thing when I have an object that I always try to do. Keep a plug-in away. When you've rising storms to quell, when opposing waters swell, it will never fail to tell. Keep a plug-in away. If the hills are high before and the paths are hard to climb, keep a plug-in away. And remember that successes come to him who bides his time. Keep a plug-in away. For the greatest, from the greatest to the least, none are from the rule released. Be thou toiler, poet, priest. Keep a plug-in away. Delve away beneath the surface. There is treasure farther down. Keep a plug-in away. Let the rain come down in torrents. Let the threatening heavens frown. Keep a plug-in away. When the clouds have rolled away, there will come a brighter day. All your labor to repay. Keep a plug-in away. There'll be lots of sneers to swallow. There'll be lots of pain to bear. Keep a plug-in away. If you got your eye on heaven, some bright day you'll wake up there. Keep a plug-in away. Perseverance still is king. Time is sure reward will bring. Work and wait, unwearying. Keep a plug-in away.
This poem that I'm going to read, oh, by the way, I'm Betty Haskins. And this poem that I'm going to share with you is one of the reasons that I absolutely love Dunbar. It's because he wrote in a way that transcends times. The problems that he wrote about then, we're still facing now. The situations that we were in then, we're still in now. It's so evident by this poem. In the African American church, music has always been a very big part, but it's changed over the years. And every time it changed, whether it was from the work songs in the field to spirituals to gospel to hip hop, the congregation was split as to whether or not the music was too secular. So join me and listen to Dunbar as he writes about Deacon Jones's grievance. I've been watching of 'em, Parson, and I am sorry for to say that my mind is not contented with the loose and careless way that them folks treat the music. Tain't the proper sort of choir. Then I don't believe in Christians for singing hymns for hire. But I never would have murmured, and the matter might have gone if it wasn't for the antics I seen them carry on. So I thought it was my duty for to come and ask if you could sort of gently take them singing folks to task. First, the music they been singing will disgrace us mighty soon. It's a cross between an Opry and an old cotillion tune. And this highfalutin style and its dashes and the quivers, why, it sets my head to swimming when I'm coming down the aisle. Now, it might be almost decent if it wasn't for the way they get up there and sing it. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. Somebody got to praise him. Somebody got to praise him. Loud and gay, Pastor. Why, it shames the name of the sacred in its brazen worldliness. And they even got 100 in a bold newfangled dress. Now, you'll excuse me, Mr. Parson, if I seem a little sore, but I have sung the songs of Israel for 60 years and more, and it sort of hurts my feelings for to see the way they put away these harem-scarum ditties that is capturing the day. Now, there's another little happening, and I'll mention it while I'm here, just to show that my objections are offered sound and clear. It was one day they were singing, and they was doing well enough, singing good as people could sing such awful mess of stuff, when the choir gave a howl and the organ gave a groan, and they left one weak-voiced fella singing there alone. But now he stuck right to the music, though 'twas trying as could be. And when I tried to help him, Pastor, well, the whole church scowled at me. What? You say that's what? That's solo singing. Well, I pray the Lord I growed up when folks was willing to sing their hymns so high. In the good old Bethel days when folks was all contented with the simple songs of praise. Now, I may have spoke too open, but 'twas hard to keep still, and I hope you'll tell the singers that I don't wish them no ill will, that they all may get to glory is my wish and my desire. But Pastor, tell them they'll need a little extra training before they join the heavenly choir. Tell them for me, Pastor. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carol Brown, and I'm proud to say that I am a Daytonian. I come from Dayton, Ohio, where Paul Laurence Dunbar was born and lived with his mother. I even know where her house is. I've been in there. And my mother used to be a volunteer there with Mrs. Ski and Mrs. Morrow. This dress is Mrs. Morrow's dress. So you see, I'm very happy to be a part of this wonderful group to share and keep Paul Laurence Dunbar's poetry and stories alive. And by the way, this Finley Market was one that Paul Laurence Dunbar probably did visit when he was living in Dayton. Paul was very famous with his ability to capture the way he heard the ex-slaves speak. And he had a lot of great humorous stories, as he seemed to really observe the women. And this poem is called Discovery. This is one that my mother used to do with Mrs. Ski, so it's one of my favorites. Seen you at church last night. Never mind, Miss Lucy. What I mean? Oh, that's all right. Never mind, Miss Lucy. You's as smart could be, but you couldn't hide from me. Ain't I got two eyes to see? Never mind, Miss Lucy. Guess you thought you's awful keen. Never mind, Miss Lucy. Everything you done, I seen. Never mind, Miss Lucy. Seen him take your arm just so when he got outside the door. Oh, I know that man's your beau. Never mind, Miss Lucy. Say now, honey, what he say? Never mind, Miss Lucy. Keep your secrets. That's your way. Never mind, Miss Lucy. Won't tell me, and I your pal. I'm going to tell his other gal. Know her too. Her name is Sam. Never mind, Miss Lucy.
Hi, my name is Viveka Deans. One of the aspects that I appreciate about Paul Laurence Dunbar's poems is the way he blends honor and dignity and beauty to the deep Southern dialect spoken by my grandmother, Alice Sullivan. Enjoy My Sort of Man. Let me also add, one of the things I like about this particular poem is, even though it says my sort of man, I like that it actually speaks to human, to all people. Again, enjoy My Sort of Man. I don't believe in aristocrats and never did. You see, the plain old home-like sort of folks is good enough for me. Of course, I don't desire a man to be too turned or rough, but then I think all folks should know when they are nice enough. Now, there's folks in this here world, from peasant up to king, who want to be so awful nice. They overdo the thing. That's just the thing that makes me sick. And quick in a wink, I set it down. Them same folks ain't half so good as you think. I like to see a man dress nice and clothes becoming too. I like to see a woman fix, as women ought to do. And boys and gals I like to see look fresh and young and spry. We all must have our vanity and pride before we die. But I judge no man by his clothes, nor gentleman nor tramp. The man that wears the finest suit may be the biggest scamp. And he whose limbs are clad in rags that make a mournful sight, in life's great battle may have proved a hero in the fight. I don't believe in aristocrats. I like the honest hand that lies upon the healthful cheek and speaks the honest man. I like to grasp the brawny hand that labor's lips have kissed. For he who has not labored here, life's greatest pride has missed. The pride to feel that your own strength has cleaved for you the way to heights to which you were not born, but struggled day by day. What though the thousands sneer and scoff and scorn your humble birth? Kings are but puppets. You are king by right of royal worth. The man who simply sits and waits for good to come along ain't worth the breath one would take to tell him he is wrong. For good ain't flowing around this world for every fool to sup. You got to put your seers on and go and hunt it up. Good goes with honesty, I say, to honor and to bless, to rich and poor alike it brings a wealth of happiness. The aristocrats ain't got it all, for much to their surprise. That's one of Earth's most blessed things. They can't monopolize.
Again, my name is Ron Carter. Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem, A Negro Love Song, expresses a particular type of love that is exciting, overcoming even the most daunting of obstacles in one's life. Despite the great distances between two lovers, the speaker. The speaker's love is strong and unwavering, with a longing to be with the love of his life, knowing the joy of having her for a lawyer. Well, also the words in this poem express an escape from the hardships of life, obtaining freedom. And this speaker, well, he looks forward to picturing her physically and in his heart. He revels in the joy with pride, bragging to his male friends of his great love for a female companion and his adoration of her. Seen my lady home last night. Jump back, honey, jump back. Held her hand and squeezed it tight. Jump back, honey, jump back. Heard her sigh, a little sigh, seeing a light gleam from her eye, and a smile go flitting by. Jump back, honey, jump back. Heard the wind blow through the pine. Jump back, honey, jump back. Mockingbird was singing fine. Jump back, honey, jump back. And my heart's beating so that I couldn't not bear to go. Jump back, honey, jump back. Put my arm around her waist. Jump back, honey, jump back. Raised her lips and took a taste. Jump back, honey, jump back. Love me, honey? Love me true? Love me well as I love you? And she answered, course I do. Jump back, honey, jump back.
Hello, I'm originally born and raised in Norristown, Pennsylvania, a first generation Northerner. And the reason I like this lively poem, How Lucy Backslid, is because it shines a spotlight on the dance of romance and how that interplay lines the often elusive path to marriage between a couple. The times is mighty stirring among the people up our way. They sputing and they arguing and fussing night and day. And all this monstrous trouble that hit makes me tired to tell is about that Lucy Jackson that was such a mighty belle. She was the preacher's favored, and he told the church one night that she traveled through the cloud of sinner bearing of a light. But now, I allow he thinking that she must have lost her lamp, 'cause Lucy done backslided, and they trouble in the camp. Her daddy wants to beat her, but her mommy dares him to, for she looking at the question from a woman's point of view. And she say now she wouldn't have it different if she could, that her daughter only acted just like any other would. 'Cause when women argue, they is mighty easy led by their hearts and don't go fooling about the reasons of the head. So her mommy laid the law down. She ain't recognizing wrong, but you got to make allowance for the cause that go along. Now the cause that made Miss Lucy for to throw her grace away, I's afeared won't bear no inspection when it come to judgment day. Though the same thing been a working ever since the world began, the woman disobeying for to tice along a man. If you attended the revivals which we held the winter past, you can recollect that converts was a coming thick and fast, but they ain't no use in talking. They was all left in the lurch when old Miss Jackson's daughter found her peace and took to church. Why, she shouted over every inch of Ebenezer's floor, up into the preacher's pulpit, and from there down to the door. Then she hugged and squeezed her mommy, and she hugged and kissed her dad, and she struck it at her sister. People say like she was mad. I has attended some revivals, but that was lively in my day, and I'd seen folks get religion in most ever kind of way. But I tell you, And you believe me that I speak in true indeed. That gal took her religion harder than the hardest yet I see. Well, from that 'twas, Sister Jackson, won't you please do this or that? She must always start the singing when they pass around the hat. And it seemed there wasn't nothing in that church that could go by. I doubt Sister Lucy Jackson had a finger in the pie. But the saying mighty truthful that it's easier to sail when the sea is calm and gentle than to weather out a gale. That's what made this woman's trouble. If the storm had kept away, she'd have had enough religion for it to lasted out her day. Lucy went with Lyshie Davis, but when she joined church, there was lots of little places that, of course, she couldn't go. And she had to get up dancing and her singing and her play. Now, it's natural that such goings on to drive a man away. So when Lucy got so solemn, Ike, he started for to go with a gal who was a sinner and could make a better show. Lucy just went on the meeting like she didn't care a rap, but my spurns kept me thinking that was something gonna drap. For a gal won't let religion or no other sort of thing stop her when she takes a notion that she wants a wedding ring. You can promise her the blessing of a happy afterlife, and it's nice to be an angel, but she'd rather be a wife. So when Christmas come and Master get a frolic on the lawn, didn't surprise me not the littlest seeing Lucy looking on. And I seed a warning lightning go a flashing from her eye just as Lyshie and his new gal went a gallivanting by. And that Tildy, she giggled, and she get her dress a flirt, like the people she was passing was as common as the dirt. And the minute she was dancing, why, that gal put on more airs than a cat a taking kittens up a pair of winding stairs. She could afford to show her smartness, for she couldn't help but know that with just the present dancers, she was owner of the floor. But I think she kind of cooled down if she happened on to slide for to notice that air lightning that I seed in Lucy's eye. And she wouldn't have been so astonished when the people get a shout and Lucy threw her mantle back and come a gliding out. Son Arms was there to take her as she fluttered down the floor like a feather from a bedtick when the wind commenced to blow. Soon as Tildy see the trouble, she just turned and tossed her head, but seemed like she lost her spirit. All her daringness was dead. Didn't cut another caper, nary time the blessed night. But the other one, it looked like couldn't get enough delight. When you keeps a colt standing in the stable all along, when he do get out, it's natural he'll be pulling mighty strong. If you will tie up your feelings, here's the best advice to take. Look out for an awful loosen when the string that holds them break. Lucy's mommy groaned to see her, and her poppy stormed and tore. But she kept right on hauling to the center of the floor. So they went and asked the pastor if he couldn't make her quit. But the telling of the story threw the preacher in a fit. Tildy Taylor chewed her handkerchief till she chewed it in a hole. All the sinners was rejoicing because the lamb had left the fold. And the last I see to Lucy, she and Lysh was side and side. I don't blame the gal for dancing, and I couldn't if I tried. For the men that wants to marry and are growing around on trees, and the gal that wants to get one surely has to try to please. It's a hard thing for a woman for to pray and just sit down and to sacrifice a husband so as to try to gain a crown. Now, I don't say she was justified in following her plan, but although she lost her religion, she surely got the man. Later, when she is certain that the preachers made him fast, she can just go back to church and ask forgiveness for the past.
I've been driven to the poetry of Paul Laurence Dunbar because of the sublime nature of the words of his poems and the rhythm of those words and the music in those words. Not only was he gifted in word, but he also, from his life experience and the experience of his parents and grandparents, he knew about music and dance and the nature of music and dance and the ability of music and dance to make life that's really hard bearable. I want to share one of his poems that I find meaning in, and it's called My Sweet Brown Gal. When the clouds is hanging heavy in the sky, and the wind is talking mighty vigorous by, I don't go a sighing all along the way. I just walk or waiting for the close of day, 'cause I know when evening drapes her shadows down, I won't care a smidgen for the weather's frown. Let the rain go splash and let the thunder rail. There's a happy shelter, and I's going there. Down in my old cabin, where mama's toast, taters in the fire laying there to roast. No one is there to cross me. Got no talking pal, but I's got company of my sweet brown gal. So I spend my evening listening to her sing like a blessed angel, how her voice do ring. Sweeter than a bluebird fluttering around when he sees the steaming of the new plowed ground. Then I hugs her closer, closer to my breast. Needn't sing, my darling. Take your honest rest. Does I mean Melindy, Mandy, Liz, or Sal? No, I mean my fiddle. That's my sweet brown gal. Be it ever so lonely, there's no place like home. My sweet brown gal.
Hi, I'm Oni Asana again. I'm a storyteller and poet. And when I present as Liza's mother, The Critters Dance is one of my favorite poems. I love telling it to children of all ages. You know, Dunbar's use of personification comes alive, like the folk tales that we grew up on, you know, Aesop, Brer Rabbit, the Kwaku Anansi, you know, when the animals could talk. Well, here's my version of The Critters Dance by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Ain't nobody never told you not a word at all about the time them critters give they fancy ball. Well, some folks tell it in a story, and some folks sing the rhyme. It appear to me you ought to heard it, 'cause it's old as time. Well, the critters all was prosperous. That mean they was doing real good. And now would be the chance for to tease old Parson Hedgehog with a giving of a dance. Course, you know them critters preacher is the strictest kind, and he never made no allowance for the frisky mind. So they sent their invitations. Raccoon, he read them all. This here note is to invite you to the fancy ball. Come along, bring your ladies, bring your cheering too. Put on all your bibs and tuckers. Show what you can do. Well, When the night come, they all gathered in a place they knowed, far enough away from people nigh up the road. All the critters had responded, hop toad up to bear. And I was here to tell you, Parson Hedgehog too, he was there. Well, they walked and made their obeisances just like critters do, and they talked and promenaded round and through. Jealous old Miss Fox, she whispered, "See Miss Wildcat there? Ain't it scateless her coming with her shoulders bare?" Old man Turtle, he wasn't honing for no dancing tricks, so he stayed by old Miss Turtle just a talking politics. Then the band, it missed the plan. Critters all in place, four across and four stand sideways, smiling face to face. Fessor Frog, he played a cornet. Cricket played a fife. Slews of grasshoppers are fiddling like to save their life. Mr. Crow, he caught the figures from way up there in the tree. How those critters sashayed, it was a sight to see. Mr. Possum grabbed Miss Rabbit by the hand. She said, "Oh, now, aren't you awful? Quit it, goodness lands." Raccoon dancing with Miss Squirrel. He'd take her up and down the flow. Old man Bear, he ain't so nimble and he'd make him blow. Oh, oh, Parson Hedgehog, he was groaning awful at his convert shines, though he peeking through his fingers at them moving lines. 'Twas he couldn't sit still no longer when that fiddle rang. Up he jumped and bless you, honey, he done cut the pigeon wing. Why, them critters like to fainted, much they surprised. Sister Fox vowed she wasn't going to believe her eyes. But they just wasn't no sputin' matter anymore. Parson Hedgehog was capering up and down the floor. And then they all just capered scantless. Then they couldn't doubt that they could still go to meeting. I mean, now who could turn them out? For with dancing and religion, they was all up in the fold. For dancing with the parson couldn't hurt the soul. Thank you kindly.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pater Murphy. I'm from Ireland, and I was introduced to Dunbar by my friend Donna Marie. She brought me along, persuaded me to come to Oni's presentation a few years ago, and it has cost me hours and hours and sleepless hours. It's 1 o'clock here in Ireland, but I must say, Dunbar spoke to me, and I really enjoy his poetry. And so we have, I am going to recite a little poem now. Oh, just before I start, some of you like dogs, some of you like cats, and I like horses. And I think so did Paul Laurence Dunbar. And I love his poem to celebrate one man's companionship with his horse, and that he wouldn't part with, not even for $1,000. And it's that old mare of mine. Want to trade me, mister? Well, I reckon not. Why, you couldn't buy my Suki for $1,000 on the spot. That old mare of mine. Yeah, her coat is long and shaggy, and she ain't no shakes to see. That's a ringbone, yes, you're right, sir. And she's got a short, shaky knee. But there ain't no use in talking. She'd be the only horse for me, that old mare of mine. Of course, I know that Suki's contrary, and she may be up to facts, but you gotta make allowance for the nature of her sex, that old mare of mine. If you pull her on the left hand, she plumb determined to go to the right. And a cannon couldn't scare her, but she bound to take a fright. On a piece of common paper, a thing would fight. that old mirror of mine. When my eyes commenced to fail me, though, I trust us to her sight, and she takes me safe at home on the very darkest night, that old mirror of mine. If a whipper, she'd just switch her tail and settle to a walk. If a whipper more, she'd shake her head, and like as not, she balk. But her sense ain't no ways lacking. She do everything but talk, that old mirror of mine. But she's gentle as a lady when she knows her beau can see. And she's surely got more gumption any day than you or me, that old mirror of mine. She's a mighty slow going, and she's mighty hard to start. Always getting all together, and she's closest to my heart. And I doesn't reckon, mister, that should scarcely card apart, that old mirror of mine. Well, I knows the time that cider's kinda muddled up me head. If it hadn't been for Suki here, I reckon I'd be dead. But she got me in the middle of the road and took me home. And she wouldn't let me wander, nor she wouldn't let me roam. That's the kind of horse to tie to when your head's full of cider foam, that old mirror of mine. You can talk about your heaven, you can talk about your hell. There is people, there is horses, then there's cattle, then there's that old mirror of mine. She did the bestest thing that ever struck the meadows in the town. And although her head ain't fitting for to wear no golden crown, doing the blessed way for Peter for to turn my Suki down. That old mirror of mine.
This poem is called The Concert. And in this poem, Paul Laurence Dunbar highlighted the beauty of nature and how if we just sit and listen, we can hear the concert of the insects and the birds coming together just to give us a beautiful sound in nature. The concert. It was held in God's great temple on a happy summer day. There was quite a host to hear it. Old, youthful, grave, and gay. Mr. Robin was conductor, with an oak twig in his hand, held in readiness to signal for the music of his band. And the band was all attention. All alert was everyone. Robin bowed, gave the signal, and the concert had begun. Master Locust had his cello, and the cricket played a fife, while the bee held up a tuba, blowing it for dearest life. The club of bar musicians, very famous, called the Breeze, charmed the hearts of all their hearers with some wondrous symphony. And the treetops bowed and nodded their approval in great haste, for the symphonies were suited for their strictly classic taste. All the playing was delightful, both in point of time and tone, and no instrument was louder than the woodbird's xylophone. There were vocalists aplenty. All the noted ones were there. Even the river came to join them, gladly to furnish its share. While the tumult was stupendous, it was like to shake the place when a bluebird's warbled, trebled in the water's rolling bay. Mrs. Katydid was present for her alto so well known. Also, Mr. Bullfrog's famous for his mellow baritone. And the tenor of the concert was none other than our friend, G. Grasshopper. Why, his encore seemed to me he would never end. When the solos all were finished and the orchestra was done, then they all had the grand finale, which was joined by everyone. Locust, bullfrog, cricket, bluebird, katydid, and bumblebee blended all in nature's chorus in delightful harmony. And the audience who heard it all were willing to confess that they had never heard a concert with such a grand success. Bravo! Bravo! Bravo!
Bravo.
Hi, this is Asha B again. And this poem is Frederick Douglass. I'm attracted to this poem because it assigns the dignity and respect to our ancestral heroes that they so richly deserve. A hush is over all the teeming lists, and there is pause, a breath space in the strife. A spirit brave has passed beyond the mists and vapors that obscure the sun of life. In Ethiopia, with bosom torn, laments the passing of her noblest born. She weeps for him a mother's burning tears. She loved him with a mother's deepest love. He was her champion through direful years and held her wheel all other ends above. When bondage held her bleeding in the dust, he raised her up and whispered, hope and trust. For her, his voice of fearless clarion rung that broke in warning on the ears of men. For her, the strong bow of his power he strung and sent his arrows to the very den where grim oppression held his bloody place and gloated over the miseries of a race. And he was no soft-tongued apologist. He spoke straightforward, fearlessly uncowed. The sunlight of his truth dispelled the mist and set in bold relief each dark-hued cloud. To sin and crime he gave their proper hue and hurled at evil what was evil's due. Through good and ill report he cleaved his way right onward, with his face set toward the heights, nor feared to face the foeman's dread array. The lash of scorn, the sting of petty spites, he dared the lightning in the lightning's track and answered thunder with his thunder back. When men maligned him and their torrent wrath and furious imprecations o'er him broke, he kept his counsel as he kept his path. 'Twas for his race, not for himself he spoke. He knew the import of his master's call and felt himself too mighty to be small. No miser in the good he held was he. His kindness followed his horizon's rim. His heart, his talents, and his hands were free to all who truly needed aught of him. Where poverty and ignorance were rife, he gave his bounty as he gave his life. The place and cause that first aroused his might still proved its power until his latest day. In freedom's lists and for the aid of right, still in the foremost rank, he waged the fray. Long-lived, his occupation was not gone. He died in action with his armor on. We weep for him, but we have touched his hand and felt the magic of his presence nigh. The current that he sent throughout the land, the kindling spirit of his battle cry. Or all that holds us, we shall triumph yet and place our banner where his hopes were set. O Douglas, thou hast passed beyond the shore, but still thy voice is ringing o'er the gale. Thou'st taught thy race how high her hopes may soar, and bade her seek the heights, nor faint, nor fail. She will not fail. She heeds thy stirring cry. She knows thy guardian spirit will be nigh. And rising from the chastening rod, she stretches out her bleeding hands to God.
Hello again. I'm Oni, and I'm a storyteller and poet. And this story poem, Whistling Sam, may be about Joshua Dunbar, who was Paul Dunbar's father. He served in the Civil War. And I imagined that he was a man who loved music, and he may have been a very melodic whistler. And Paul admired hearing his father whistle. But on the other hand, Whistling Sam might be about a poem from a character from Dunbar's vivid imagination. And either way, I love this poem because it pays tribute to the brave men who fought in the Civil War and who gave their lives fighting for freedom and fighting against slavery in America. Here's my interpretation of Whistling Sam. And if you have any whistlers out there, maybe you could whistle at the certain parts, but right now I'm just going to give you the story poem about Whistling Sam by Paul Laurence Dunbar. I has heard of people dancing, and I's heard of people singing. And I've been around lots of others that could keep that banjo ringing. But of all the whistling brothers that have lived and died since Ham, the whistlingest I'd ever seen is old Ike Bates's Sam. In the kitchen or the stable, in the field or mowing hay, you could hear that brother whistling pretty nigh a mile away, puckering up his pretty features till you couldn't see his eyes. And you hear a sound like this one from that pretty pucker eyes. When they have revival meeting and the Lord's good grace is flowing on the ground and he's watering where the seeds of good is growing, while the others is a shouting and a singing right and left, you could hear that brother a whistling, kind of soft like, neath his breath. At the call for colored soldiers, Sam enlisted most the rest, with the blue of God's great army wrapped about his swelling breast. And he laughed and whistled louder in his youthful joy and glee that the government would let him help for to set his people free. Why, there was lots of ties to bind him, mind you. Mama and his Dinah. Dinah was his sweetheart, and there wasn't never finer. But he left them all, I tell you. Like a king, he marched away, trying his level best to whistle happy, solemn, choky, and gay. To the front he went and bravely fought the foe and kept his spirits. And his comrades said his whistling kept him strong when they could hear it. When a saber or a bullet cut some friend of his down, and the time came to trench him, and the boys all gathered round. And they couldn't start a hymn tune. Maybe none of them had cared. Sam would whistle, sleep in Jesus, and he know the master here. In the camp, all sad, discouraged, he would cheer the hearts of all. When above the sound of labor, you could hear his whistle call. When the cruel war was over and the boys came marching back, There were shouts and cries and blessings all along the happy tracks. And all the brothers and sisters was happy. Souls and bodies both was freed. Why, it seemed like the Redeemer must have been on earth indeed. We were standing around one evening by the front of the cabin door when somebody heard a whistling, kind of soft and sweet and low. We couldn't see the whistler, but his hymn was clear and calm. And we all stood there listening till Dinah shouted, "Sam!" And then we see the little brother way off yonder through the trees, with his face all in a pucker, making just such sounds as these. Thank you kindly.
I'm Betty Haskins, and I'm here to recite another poem that Dunbar wrote. Though Dunbar didn't live to be an old man, having died at the young age of 33, he witnessed his grandmother and his mother as they aged. He witnessed great celebrities such as Frederick Douglass as he aged. And when I read this poem, I felt as if this young man understood the process of aging because it resonated so well with me in this poem, Growing Gray. Hello, old woman, you're getting gray, and it beats old Ned to see the way that the crow's feet's a gathering round your eyes, though it oughtn't cause me no surprise, for there's been many a sun that you've seen rise, and many a one that you've seen go down, since your step was light and your hair was brown, and storms and snows have had their way. Hello, old woman, you're getting gray. Hello, old woman, you're getting gray. And the youthful pranks that you used to play are dreams of a past far long ago, that lie in the heart where the fires burn low, that has lost the flame though kept the glow, and spite of driving snow and storm, beats bravely on, forever warm. December holds the place of May. Hello, old woman, you're getting gray. Hello, old woman, you're getting gray. Who cares what the carping youngsters say, for after all, when the tale is told, love proves if a woman is young or old. Old age can't make the heart grow cold. When it does the will of an honest mind, when it beats for all mankind, then the night leads but to a fairer day. Hello, old woman, you're getting gray. Thank you.
So it's me again, Hatter, and this is about Dunbar when he was getting on, and the poem is, when all is done. When all is done and my last word is said, and ye who loved me murmur, he is dead. Let no one weep for fear that I should know, and sorrow too, that ye should sorrow so. When all is done and in the oozing clay, ye lay this cast off hull of apparently pray not for me, for after long despair, the quiet of the grave will occur. For I have suffered loss and grievous pain, the hurts of hatred and the world's disdain, and wounds so deep that love, well tried and pure, had not the power to ease them or to cure. When all is done, say not my day is o'er, and that though night I seek a dimmer shore. Say rather that my morn has just begun. I greet the dawn and not a setting sun when all is done.
Thank you, Patter. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. When all is done, I greet the dawn and not the setting sun. At this time, we just want to thank all of you again for being with us. And we are going to open the room. Information about the poems is in the chat, and also about our artists who presented the poems for you is also in the chat. And what we'd like to do now, timeless, we're going to raise your hand if you want to share a poem or make a comment or anything. This is an open community, and we welcome you to join us at this time. Thank you for being with us. Everyone was wonderful. All the poems were beautiful. Today in Dayton, Ohio, there's a memorial for Paul Dunbar, where they are a community of Dunbarians, and some of you may know Mitch Capel and Miss Ski. They gather at his gravesite in the morning, and they lay flowers on it, and then people perform. One of our, I'll get with you time, one of our presenters today, Carol Brown, she's had the opportunity to present and read his poetry at that annual memorial service that's held in Dayton, Ohio. And you heard Carol present Discovery and mentioned her mother also worked at the Dunbar House. So we have Timeless there.
So greetings, everyone. I am Timeless, joining from Bulbancha, the place of many tongues, known to the French as La Louisiane. Most have heard of the Metro New Orleans area, southeastern Louisiana. And I am a story sapien, species of story sapien. We eat stories to live and share stories to give. And I have had the pleasure of meeting Auntie Oni in the Lambs, Louisiana, and Mississippi Black Stories Tellers Gathering over the last couple of years. Thanks to Sister Diane Williams, who I believe is also here. Shout out to her. Shout out to Aaron, also known as Ireland, for standing up for humanity at the International Court of Justice. Since we have a person on the line all the way from Ireland, I want to shout good people out who stand up for the rest of humanity. And this poem that I'm going to do was given to me at a young age in Bulbancha. The elders, you know, they give us the kigombo and good food to nurture our bodies. And for spiritual food, they gave us Paul Laurence Dunbar. So this came to me when I was in single digits. A crust of bread and a corner to sleep in. A minute to smile and an hour to weep in. A pint of joy to a peck of trouble. And never a laugh, but the moans come double. And that is life. A crust and a corner that love makes precious, with a smile to warm and the tears to refresh us. And joy seems sweeter when care comes after, and a moan is the finest of foils for laughter. That is life. Paul Laurence Dunbar. Thank you kindly.
Thank you kindly.